Hello everyone, my name is Adam Michael Anthony Simpson and you're watching my YouTube channel, Adam M.A. Simpson. Today we'll be interviewing Andrew Kim. Andrew identifies as Asian American with a South Korean ethnicity and he's also gay. This interview is very important because people of the LGBTQ plus community experience a very unique type of ostracization in academia, particularly STEM academia. And we delve into that in this interview, so it's very important just knowing Andrew and his background coming from LA, also identifying with a lower socioeconomic status, growing up as an Asian American. So this whole interview is about intersectionalities and, talking about these intersections of education, perception of Asian Americans in education, but also being a member of the LGBTQ plus community is very interesting here. So please enjoy. Andrew also does very interesting research in environmental microbiology and nutrient recovery, as well as hydrogels for flame retardants, which is so important for California. So please watch part 1 and part 2, and I hope you enjoy. Stay tuned. Hey Andrew, what's up?
Hey Adam, thanks for having me on. This is awesome.
Yes. So Andrew, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. My name is Andrew Kim. I am a PhD candidate at Stanford University in the same environmental engineering and science program as Adam. I study biological wastewater treatment and sustainable water systems. And I've been thinking more every time I'm sort of asked to introduce myself. I keep wanting to focus less on my qualifications and what I do, because it's should be very less integral to who you are and how you want to introduce yourself, I feel. So I'll say things like I'm from Los Angeles. I enjoy to bake. I like video games. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll start there. Yeah. So
we'll start there. Okay. So then, can you what personal history influenced your decision to go to graduate school in the first place? Coming from LA, going to Cornell, so.
Yeah, going from sunny LA where I've never seen
weather
below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 20 with wind chill was what drove me to that. And I think it's a really fun story I like to tell a lot, because it's what led me to graduate school was sort of completely by accident and just sort of being, I guess, in the right place at the right time, or just being in the places that I were in the time I was at the NAP. But I think to really sort of understand my journey to graduate school, I have to acknowledge the fact that I'm a first generation college student, because that really did have a lot of factors on my life in terms of how I approached education and how I pursued higher education. Because being a first generation college student, so my parents were both immigrants from South Korea. They neither of them attended college or have any college degrees. My dad was a mailman for a lot of the time I was growing up. Even my mom was mostly working in fast food restaurants, and even until last year, both my mom and my older brother were, they were working low wage jobs at Hawaiian L&L in Pasadena, California. So, when you grow up in that sort of environment, career options, or what we think of when we hear career options, they're not really exposed to you in that sort of way, or not really exposed to those sort of career options. So, it's, you don't grow up thinking if I want to be, a professor, I have to go to grad school, or if I want to be an engineer, I need to get this sort of degree.
You have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah, you have to figure it out yourself. So my world was I can help I'll help my mom clean the tables and work cash register, and that was sort of my world. But and that's sort of a similar narrative for a lot of other first generation college students. But I was sort of privileged in a sense compared to other first-generation college students, especially like Black and brown first-generation college students, because at least I was like Asian American. And if you're Asian American, at least we have a sense of community and culture. Higher education is valued, you know? So like and I'm sure a lot of, not to be completely stereotypical, but I'm sure like, you know, to be perfectly honest, a lot of other Asian Americans hearing this can relate. Like I was told that I have to become a doctor and go to Harvard, right? Those are the two things I have to do. I was in this environment where you should go to college. That's a good thing. Even if you don't want to be a doctor or whatever, go to college. Education is important so that you don't have a career like me where you're being a mailman or waiting tables, or I know my dad said being a mailman was the hardest job he's ever had to have in his life. Apparently it's really stressful, but not to sort of devalue those workers, but at least it was emphasized that higher education is some good thing that I should strive for, even though we don't know exactly how to get you there. But I was like, okay, well, I really liked my like math and like my physics class in general. So I was like, you know what, I'll be a physics major, because like I really liked calculus and physics, and I'll be a physics major. You know, no one being an engineer now, no one at that point, I didn't know what engineering was. No one told me what engineering was. I legitimately thought engineers were like all construction workers, because I knew they had to like do building things. So well, I don't want to work in like as a construction worker, so why would I possibly do engineering? Leaving high school, I told them I was going to be a physics major because I really liked
physics,
high school physics.
So then what pivoted you away from physics?
So yeah, I had a lot of help from like my high school teachers, my high school guidance counselors. I would like bug my counselors to read my essays like every day. Because like my parents, not only is their first gen, but there's a language barrier. They could never like help me on an admissions essay. With their help, I got accepted to Cornell. But when I got to Cornell, I got accepted into the liberal arts college. So we had a separate college mentoring, separate letters of sciences. So I was in the liberal arts college, which was fine for me because I enjoyed a bunch of different subjects that weren't just math and physics. But I came in as intended physics major, so I signed up for like the math classes and the physics classes. But I was also taking like Latin because it has a foreign language requirement. I was taking sociology. When I got to Cornell, it was like I was kind of in for like a really rude awakening. I was like, I think legitimately like the dumbest person in my physics class. Not like dumb, right? Like we're not dumb, but like I was very not prepared. Like, and even like learning more about like what is physics, because I liked high school mechanics in high school. But they were like, oh, you're a physics major, so are you interested in like particle, condensed matter, or experimental? I'm like, what? I don't know. What? It's like, I just like math, man. Like, so yeah. When they were talking about like, dark matter and stuff like that, I was like, particles, and I was like, I don't know any of this. I don't think I like any of this. So very quickly I was like, okay, physics is not for me. So I sort of had like crisis, right? I was like, okay, I'm in this college, I've been taking like math and physics, but like I don't want to be a physics major. So like, what do I do now with my life? A lot of my friends that I had made by that point were in the engineering college, that I was just taking the same like math and physics classes with them because it was all sort of like the standard classes. So when I was telling them, I was like, I don't like physics, but like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. I did it because I like the math. I like being applied. I wanted to do like applied stuff. And they're like, oh, so you mean engineering? Like literally what we're all doing. I'm like, and I was like, oh, that's what engineering is?
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, oh, if I had known what that was, that would have been like perfect for me. It was like exactly what I want to do. Like use like the math and physics and like those sort of analytical skills to like do something more tangible, right? But I was talking to some like college counselors and like people in the Office of Internal Transfer, I think it was called. I was like, hey, I want to do engineering. I'm in the liberal arts college. What do I need to do? And they're like, oh, well, you're here early, so that's good. You just need to have all these right courses. So but yeah, I was behind. I needed to catch up on the chemistry. I needed to catch up on the biology if I wanted to be able to transfer. So I decided, like, the summer after my freshman year, I was like, okay, I need to catch up on these credits. The option to stay at Cornell for the summer to take chemistry was too expensive for me. So I sought out more local schools. So that summer after freshman year, I attended Cal State University Northridge, which is like a Cal State public school. And I was like, can I enroll in chemistry here, including like chemistry lab and all that, and transfer the credits. And I was able to do that for much cheaper than
a lot of people do that.
So I was like, all right, that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna take chemistry, transfer engineering. Still don't know what type of engineering I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna do that. So when I got to Cal State Northridge, which I loved my time there, and I'll explain why, I did notice it was quite a stark difference. I was there for a whole summer. I was taking this admittedly really easy for me chemistry course. So when I got there, I was talking to like my lab TA. He's like, oh yeah, I'm like working for this one professor, and he had this sort of like opportunity. He was with the Campus Institute of Sustainability. Where he was like, oh yeah, well, I have this sort of like side project where, you know, we're trying to better track like campus wastes, like all the like food waste that goes in trash, all the landfill trash. We're trying to do something a little bit more sustainable with it. You know, of course, there's like recycling and all that, but you know, there's other things that you were thinking about doing with like the compostable waste, basically. So there was like a little project they were thinking about diverting that organic waste on campus to like an offsite like anaerobic digester, or this facility that would convert the organic matter into biogas, which is like a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide, which then they can try to harness for energy. And I was like, wait, you're creating energy from like trash? Like, that's really, I was like, that's really cool. I'm like, yeah, like I can do whatever you want. Like that sounds cool. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Because again, I'm here for the summer. I'm not going anywhere. I'm free basically. And he was like, yeah, sure. So yeah, that summer I ended up, in addition to like taking my chemistry class, I was doing a lot of work with like spreadsheets, looking at like campus waste data. He had me write reports and do like literature reviews almost with like the biogas technology. And
that's
like,
very good.
Yeah, like what we were doing.
Intro.
Like this was, I just thought this was like pretty cool. Like definitely a whole field that I had no exposure to whatsoever. Right? So, but I think what was really like transformative was that because I had this experience, I had this like really one-on-one connection with this professor. So like often I would like sit in his office and we would talk for like an hour or two and just like, and sometimes we would like, I would give an update, but then we would just like sit down and keep talking.
Chat.
So then like, that's when, cause you know, I'd been at college for a year, but I hadn't had any like face-to-face interaction with these like professors because I was in like, large classes. So yeah, really talking to this professor, like I got to hear his story, got to learn like, you know, why he became a scientist, what he did to get to this place. Like he went to grad school at MIT, he got like a master's degree before that. He worked in industry a little bit, but then came back to academia. And I was able to just sort of like hear his journey. And that's where I sort of first learned what like research was. At the time, I didn't think I was doing research, and admittedly, maybe it wasn't even research, but that's when I first, through those conversations with that like through those one-on-one conversations with the professor, I like really learned what research actually was. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, not something I thought for myself because I didn't know what research in grad school and PhD was, but I was like, I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, that summer was a really, great experience for me. So when I got back to Cornell, so in the fall, so the start of my sophomore year, I was like, I felt like I was ready to like be on a good track to transfer into engineering. Still didn't know what type of engineering I wanted to do. Like I had some friends who were mechanical, so I was just gonna do that.
Yeah.
But then I thought about like the experience I had in summer, and I was like, you know, that was kind of cool. Let me see if there's any other professors here doing that sort of work. Mm-hmm. So then, yeah, I sort of navigated all the like faculty directory websites and stuff like that, and I found this professor in environmental engineering who was doing like environmental biotechnology and other like waste to energy and anaerobic digestion and biogas and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, that sounds like what I did over the summer. So maybe I should like talk to this person. So yeah, I shot him an email and they said, hey, like I just had this like summer internship where I was like analyzing campus waste, and I read about things like bioreactors and things like that. And I think I could, if you have anything positioned for me, I would love to like sort of get involved. And
yeah,
he was really receptive to that. So yeah, like sort of by luck, I found his lab, and you know, all of a sudden, I think it's so funny because like the reason why I was at Cal State Northridge in the first place because like I did terribly on the AB chemistry exam and I didn't have any like, so I had to take chemistry.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, oh well, like you have to do a lot of chemistry now. I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, like he took me in his lab, so I joined his lab beginning of sophomore year. I was doing more projects with like anaerobic digestion and biogas energy, and it was different because I was actually like in the lab doing wet lab stuff and not just looking at spreadsheets and reading about it. So I thought that was like a really cool compliment to what I did. And then I remember it like even at the end, so like I had been sort of involved in getting trained for that quarter, or for that semester I should say. I think at the very end I was like, wait, this is environmental engineering, isn't it? Like there's a name for this.
Yeah.
Like wait, I should just do environmental engineering.
Yes.
That's how I declared my major.
Exactly. Yeah. You're just
I think the right combination of talking to the right people and having those people influence you at sort of right time really put me on this path. And yeah, when I joined his lab, I fell in love with research. I understood what research was. I understood what the goal was. I thought I was pretty good at it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Who's the name of the professor? I don't think you.
Professor was Lars Angenet. He's actually in Germany now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he was doing a lot of like biotechnology stuff and like transforming waste into valuable products using microorganisms. And yeah, I was sort of surrounded by like the grad students and the other undergrads, and so when it came time, I kept with that lab for the next 3 years. So I'm an undergrad. So when it came time to think about what comes after undergrad, they're like, oh well, like I was surrounded by grad students, they're all doing PhD. I was like, okay, well, guess that's what I'm gonna do.
Exactly. Usually it is the case that well, for the most part, students that do research in undergrad tend to go to grad school because if you consistently do the research, then
it's hard to take a break when you're making money and then go back. You're not making money. Really glad I got on that path again. Leaned in a lot on my college professors. I loved my college professors. Leaned in a lot on my friends and the other grad students to help me like navigate the grad school admissions process, because I was first generation college student. I'm the first one in like all of my family to go to like any sort of grad school, so I had no idea what I was doing at that point. Like if my friends didn't know what college was like, they have absolutely no idea what grad school was like. My parents still ask me like, oh, so you're coming home for summer break, right? Like you have a summer vacation? And it's like, or like you must be really busy with like classes and all that.
Yes.
Like, you take
still taking classes? No, not really, no.
They're like, wait, you get paid for this? I'm like, so yeah.
On my end, the funniest story I've got, the funniest situation I was in was when I was telling a group of my aunt and uncle's neighbors that we get paid to in grad school to do our PhDs, and they're like, really? I was like, yes, we get paid to do research, and contribute to the field. And just like, it must not be by much, which it isn't. But what she was saying was like, it's not anything to live off of.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because I was like, no, it's kind of different. Like, it's almost like we're an employee. But
yeah, now to explain that, like, oh, it's all like a job, and my parents say like, well, if you're spending time in school, why didn't you become a doctor and all that? I'm like, I am sort of being a doctor and that stuff. So but yeah, that's sort of my, in a nutshell, my journey, that from being this like poor first gen student, no idea about any career path, to where I'm now, getting my PhD at Stanford.
Nice. And so going on to the last question for this section, I see that you've pursued multiple service activities through the Engineering Research Consortium ReNUWIt. This includes being a Stanford campus representative for the 4 main campuses: UC Berkeley, the Colorado School of Mines, New Mexico State University, and Stanford, on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. I know that you identify as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, and so why is this work important to you, coming from this personal background?
Thanks for that question, Adam. The ReNUWIt is this engineering research center funded by NSF. It really bridges together like graduate students, faculty, undergraduates, industry partners from these 4 different campuses, and we all sort of have this collective, collaborative community. It's really great. And within that community, we have this subcommittee for diversity and inclusion. So I'm leading that subcommittee this year. And the work is incredibly important to me. And I know, I really enjoy doing a lot of diversity and inclusion work, and I think some people might be struck with that. I think some people might look at me and say like, oh, he's an Asian man, like both Asian and male, that's like really overrepresented in STEM. Like, why is this guy leading a diversity and inclusion committee, right? But to your point, I think diversity manifests itself in a lot of different ways. You could identify as having a disability, or being a first generation college student, low income, or being like a member of LGBT community like myself. And I think it's important that we think about these metrics of diversity and inclusion beyond sort of traditional ones of race and gender, even though those ones are incredible as well. And there's a lot of different intersectionalities of these different entities. So, I want to talk a little bit more about that, because while I am Asian and while I am male, which are 2 overrepresented aspects of people in STEM fields, I'm also a gay man, which is incredibly underrepresented, right?
Or openly, just openly, a lot,
and it's those sort of navigating those different aspects of identities, all of which are equally valid in creating who I am. It's challenging, because sometimes those identities can be like at odds with each other. For example, like the narrative of an Asian American student in education is that, well, they're likely to succeed. They come from a community where they might have a lot of resources, or lots of emphasis in higher education, so they're likely to succeed, so we don't need to focus on them. But if you think about the narrative for like an LGBTQ student, we're at risk, we struggle with our identities, we need extra attention, especially in places like higher education. We're more likely to be homeless. So what happens when those 2 identities are in the same person, right? It's not like one is more equally valued than the other. How is a system like higher education supposed to treat me as a gay Asian American, right? And there's no like right or easy way to address those things, but those sort of issues and complexities, I think, should be thought about. And part of that is why doing diversity inclusion work is so important to me. Because, there are really lots of barriers and systemic barriers, really, that LGBTQ people face, particularly in STEM fields. And there are a lot of studies on this, so I got sources if you want me to back them up. But.
Oh yeah, I mean, I know, but please go ahead, educate us.
In STEM fields in particular, LGBTQ people are 20% more likely to experience some sort of professional evaluation, or 30% more likely to have symptoms of depression.
Yeah.
We're more likely to not finish our STEM degrees than our straight counterparts, and that includes straight women too. So there's these barriers that we face. I believe a lot of them have to do with sort of non-inclusive environments. So that's my work, is really trying to tackle the root of that issue. I've myself had a lot of personal experiences facing some of these barriers and these systemic issues. Yeah, for example, that professor I had at Cal State University Northridge, I've talked about him in such a way where he's been such a great influence on me, right? And he was transformative for me in a lot of ways, where I got to have this really intimate connection with him, talk research, learn about his personal journey. And at the same time, there was a day where I had in his office chatting him up like normal, and then he mentioned that I homeschool my kids because I don't want the public school system teaching my kids that things like homosexuality is okay, and I want my kids to have good Christian values. And what was I supposed to do in that sense, right? If I'm in that meeting, I've already had a working established relationship with him, he's been great to me so far. Do I stand up for myself and speak out and potentially risk that prior relationship that we had? Or do I shut up and keep it to myself and just try to survive and navigate this environment, right? Those sort of issues, because LGBTQ issues aren't noticeably visible a lot of the time. These are issues that we experience that someone a person of color may not. Of course, people of color will experience a lot of comments like that too. But these sort of issues are really common for us. So having this was the first person that maybe I saw myself I could be like this person,
identifying with.
I could do this research thing, I could be like him, I could get a PhD like him. And then having to say I can't have my kids be exposed to things like homosexuality. How was I ever supposed to see myself represented in that position ever again?
Exactly.
Right? And that's what brings us down. That's what contributes to those
exactly. Death by 1,000,
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just such a very pointed thing to say.
Yeah, but it's also other things, we as queer people, we oftentimes carry a lot of traumas, right? My parents, I remember vividly when I came out to them so long ago, they said straight to my face that I would rather kill myself than hear this about you and learn this is who you are. Or my dad would say now I regret not sending you off to the military as soon as you graduated high school. And no child should ever hear their parents say that straight to their face, right? And that's traumatizing. And
it is.
Carry those traumas. So how are you expected to complete a PhD, which is already traumatizing in a lot of ways? And you're carrying that stuff in your personal life, where that should be, your personal life and your family should be a source of support, but you carry that sort of stuff. And even the minor things too, right? When your professor says, "Oh, I'm having this Christmas party or this barbecue."
Bring your partner, and then
significant others are welcome, right? It's what is my significant other okay? I actually don't know what my advisor thinks about that. Would I jeopardizing that relationship with my advisor if I were to bring my significant other? Or should I tell them? Should I not tell them? A lot of those things, like, really, these sort of things you learn to navigate, I suppose. But, and that's why it makes it hard for, like LGBTQ scientists to succeed, really.
Yeah.
So that's why I think things like diversity and inclusion are extraordinarily important to help get at the root of those issues. So, like, and there's a lot of work to do at Stanford too.
Yeah.
In STEM everywhere, right? Like in STEM fields, they tend to be like extremely male and heteronormative, male dominated, heteronormative. Even at Stanford, I remember when I first got here, first of all, I was the only one in my cohort to stay on for a PhD. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of alone in that regard. And then I look up the year above me to your cohort, Adam. I see 8 straight men, and that's the entire cohort. I'm like, okay,
yes. Well, Susie.
And Susie. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess I don't fit in there either, right? Like, I think environmental engineering might do a better job of that, because I do think we tend to be
more 50-50 male, female.
Yeah, we tend to do a really good job with gender representation. And maybe like I can speak more for gay men in particular than other members of the LGBTQ community, but maybe we can align ourselves more with women. We might feel a little bit more accepted in those sort of environments. But other engineering fields like mechanical engineering, physics, and
mechanical, you mean the fraternity? Yeah,
exactly. The fact that we can joke about that just shows it's so male, normally, like usually probably heteronormative.
Heteronormative, but even in the case of there being an LGBTQ identifying member, they're usually homonormative too.
Yeah.
So like as you were saying, intersectionality is very like we need to be thinking more in more complex ways than we usually do.
Yeah, exactly. So like actually there was a pretty interesting study that came out just yesterday, I think. It's a new survey and poll where I don't know if you've seen it, but I think the latest statistics are that maybe like 5% of the population identifies as LGBTQ.
You mean that the more people are identifying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think bisexual is the most rapidly growing subset of that. I think gay men in particular remain about like 1.5% of the total population. So like I've never had a gay professor or anything like that. I don't know any other real gay environmental engineering people. So that lack of representation can be hard if you're sort of navigating these spaces. So that's why I think actively working in diversity and inclusion, you don't have to be an ethnic or a gender minority. You don't have to be any sort of minority to get involved with diversity and inclusion work. But when you hear about those things, like really reminds me of the importance of really creating these sort of inclusive environments.
Inclusive,
diverse, ethical. Yeah.
And like I had an interview with Professor Monica Cox. And she advocates for people and students and professors having the courage to stand up for these things as like being right. And like I know you were part of the anti-racism town hall for CEE, and a professor asked me, how do we create an anti-racist environment when most of us are not Black or something of that nature, which annoyed me, actually. When that's not the point. What we were trying to do was like just be a human and connect with everyone on a human level, because I'm not just a Black person. I'm a person who happens to be Black.
Right.
Or I'm a person who happens to be gay, or I'm a person who happens to be a woman, etc.
Yeah, like you don't have to be a Black person to know that Black people face barriers and discrimination, right?
Exactly.
Like, you don't have to be another gay person and me telling you these things that I experience. You can still empathize and understand what that's like and imagine how that must feel for someone like me, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to be like identified in the same way. So
exactly.
yeah.
Anyways.
So bottom at the end of the day, I like to lead this subcommittee for diversity and inclusion. You know, we try to take the positions of power as we get them, and we try to use positions of power to hold various people accountable.
Yes.
But also I think it's just helpful to at least build some sort of community where, you know, you talk about these sort of issues and you see eye to eye with them, and then having that support system, I think.
Yes, that is very important. And so thank you for doing this very important work. And, you know.
Yeah, thanks for letting me talk about it, Adam.
Thank you for watching part 1 featuring Andrew Kim. Please like and subscribe to the channel because that helps to support me. And stay tuned for part 2, which will be out tomorrow if you're watching this on a Friday, or will be linked to this video if you're watching it after it premiered. So stay tuned. Hello everyone, my name is Adam Michael Anthony Simpson and you're watching my YouTube channel, Adam M.A. Simpson.